3 things you need to know about a panic attack. Number 1, panic attacks are very, very physical. Oftentimes when people get their very first panic attack, they don't even know it's a panic attack. They just feel like they're about to pass out, that they're gonna die, that they're gonna just lose consciousness because they're not getting enough oxygen, that their heart is just gonna explode, that they feel like something is terribly wrong, that they genuinely feel like they're gonna die. And when they're having a panic attack, it's very, very physical. Oftentimes, when you get your very first panic attack, you don't know it's a panic attack. You always have this underlying fear that what happens if it happens again? You know deep down you can't run away from a panic attack. Now, here's the honest truth. Panic attacks can go away once you focus on the right steps. But in that moment, you kind of develop a fear of what happens if I get another panic attack? What if it happens here? What if I can't escape? What if I can't go somewhere and leave? Well, what does this do? This actually often leads to another panic attack. Which leads me to number 2. People don't talk about this, but after having a panic attack, just because the panic attack is done doesn't mean you go back to living normally. Something happens to your nervous system. After your panic attack, your nervous system becomes sensitive. Essentially, what your nervous system is saying is, look, we saw a threat. Now, even though there wasn't a real threat, it was perceived. Right? So it's no different than you actually being in a life or death situation. Your nervous system can't tell the difference about what's real and what's not. It looks at you for that answer. So what happens is that you end up feeling like you're about to die, and that creates your nervous system to become sensitized because, well, if you saw a threat once, perceived, well, then what happens if you see another threat? So your nervous system becomes on the lookout. You become sensitized. Every small thing will trigger your anxiety. And if you don't know what's happening, you can feel like, oh my God, something's wrong. I'm not back to normal. Like something's seriously wrong. Well, it's all just part of the anxiety. It's all part of the initial panic attack or the subsequent panic attacks that led you to the cycle. And that leads me to step 3. Once you understand how panic attacks work, once you understand how these principles work, well, then naturally you won't fear a panic attack. So many people are fearful of the fact that what happens if they pass out? What happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? Even if sometimes they feel like they know that panic attacks aren't dangerous, they're just so uncomfortable that they just don't want to experience it. However, it's that avoidance of not wanting to feel it is what often brings it back. If you welcome it in, you'll actually notice the panic attacks go away relatively quickly. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. So if you really want to know how to overcome this, how to get out of this, check the comment section. There's a bunch of free resources.